is up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I'm going to be reviewing what is, in my opinion, the greatest work of fantasy literature of all time, a title that I thought for most of my life was held by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I am talking about, just got my Broken Binding editions unboxed, Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson, and also the Greater Malazan World to include Paths to Ascendancy, Novels of the Malazan Empire, the Carcanus Trilogy, the Witness Tetralogy, the collected works of Steven Erikson and Ian C. Esselmont. But while I do love all of those series, today I'm going to be talking about Malazan Book of the Fallen, the main 10-book series. If we are to live, Rake went on, we must take risks. Else our lives become deaths in all but name. There is no struggle too vast, no odds too overwhelming, for even should we fail, should we fall, we will know that we have lived. And so we weep for the fallen, we weep for those yet to fall, and in war the screams are loud and harsh, and in peace the wail is so drawn out, we tell ourselves we hear nothing. And so this music is a lament, and I am doomed to hear its bittersweet notes for a lifetime. Show me a God that does not demand mortal suffering. Show me a God that celebrates diversity, a celebration that embraces even non-believers, and is not threatened by them. Show me a God who understands the meaning of peace in life, not in death. Stop. Gessler said in a grating voice. Blinking, Fiddler lowered the instrument. What? You cannot end with such anger, Fid, please. Anger? I'm sorry. He would have spoken that aloud, but suddenly he could not. His gaze lowered and he found himself studying the littered floor at his feet. Someone, in passing, perhaps Fiddler himself, had inadvertently stepped on a cockroach. Half crushed, smeared into the warped wood, its legs kicked feebly. He stared at it in fascination. Dear creature, do you now curse an indifferent god? You're right, he said, I can't end it there. He raised the fiddle again. Here's a different song, one of the few I've actually learned from Cartool. It's called the Perrault's Dance. He rested the bow on the strings, then began. Wild, frantic, amusing, its final notes recounted the triumphant female eating her lover, and even without words, the details of that closing flourish could not be mistaken. The four men laughed, then fell silent once more. We humans do not understand compassion. In each moment of our lives, we betray it. We know of its worth, yet knowing, we then attach to it a value. We guard the giving of it, believing it must be earned. Compassion is priceless, in the truest sense of the word. It must be given freely, in abundance. So why is this series my favorite series of all time? Why does this eclipse Tolkien? Why does this eclipse Red Rising? Why does this just slightly edge out Realm of the Elderlings and Wars of Light and Shadow? Why do I love this series so much? I read Malazan Book of the Fallen during a very formative time in my life. I came to it when I probably wasn't in the best headspace in my life, and this series really altered the way I view the world, the way I view others, the way I view compassion and empathy for others. I know that those are words that are thrown around a ton with Malazan. I'm not alone in thinking that it is the quintessential story of compassion and empathy. There are several minds more intelligent than myself, like Philip Chase and AP Canavan, that can dissect why this series is so monumental in its examinations of empathy and compassion. And I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to explain why this series is my favorite of all time. For me, it's the themes, it's the prose, which are beautiful, especially in Toll the Hounds and Crippled God. They're just next level good. And the characters. I think Erikson writes some of the best characters in all of fantasy. I think the only person that gives him a run for his money right now for me is Robin Hobb. I also really love Janie Wirtz. I'm not quite as read in her books, but you know, the characters of Fiddler, I mean, I have a Fiddler neck tattoo. I forget which side it's on, but I have a tattoo of one of the Bridge Burners, a character we don't even get his real name. I think that just speaks to the quality of the series. By the way, this will be spoilers light. I'm not going to cover any major plot points, but I will be talking about what the series is about, why it's had an impact on me, and just why I think Malazan is the high watermark for fantasy. So Gardens of the Moon opens up and we get a young Ganos Paran as he is viewing the fallout of this battle, or it's been a while since I've read book one, but as he's viewing this battle, we as the readers are also introduced to the characters of Fiddler and Whiskey Jack. Erikson smartly teases things to come, teases the Bridge Burners, teases Whiskey Jack's role in the greater narrative, and then time jump, we get Ganos Paran as he is joining the Malazan military. The Empire is trying to conquer the city of Darujistan on the continent of Genebakis. And we get this battle. it reminded me of Evangelion, actually, where there's like this build up for the battle. The battle happens like that, and then we're dealing with the fallout. And this is, very early on in book 1. And we meet the bridge burners, we meet the members of that inn in Darujistan, we meet Krupp, we meet Crocus, we meet Rallick-Nam, we meet Cole, we meet Murillo, love Murillo. And we just kind of get this story of all these different characters interacting on the continent of Genebakis. We get Jagut. The story just gets crazy and insane. There are Talani Mas, Walking Dead corpses. As the story expands in later books, we get, if you've heard this before, velociraptors with swords for arms. That happens too. And the series, it's just so vast while still being so incredibly personal. It gives us characters like Whiskey Jack, like Troll Sengar, like Fiddler, like Tavor. Tavor. Fiddler's my number 1 favorite of all time, but there's so many brilliant characters in this book. Fellison, and this series, a lot of people say you got to get through book 1, you got to get to book 2, or you'll grow accustomed to his character writing. I thought in book 1 his character writing was amazing. I think Steven Erikson is one of the greatest writers of all time, and not since Middle-earth did I find a world that felt as real to me as the world of Malazan Book of the Fallen. Every continent and every island, every nation feels so real, with cultures inspired by real world cultures, but still feel alien in a way. This world feels alien, but incredibly real. I just want to get this out of the way. A lot of people say that Malazan is incredibly dense and hard to understand. And I do see what they're saying with that, but I do not think Malazan is hard to understand and hard to enjoy. And I'm not saying, I'm so smart, I understand Malazan. I did not understand a lot of things my first read through, and I think it is a testament to Erikson's writing that even when you do not have a firm grasp of all the elements in the story, it is still thoroughly enjoyable at every point because of the immaculately written dialogue, because of the poignant prose, because of the incredibly human characters. Even if they're ascendants, even if they're giant Teblor berserkers, even if they're just a man with a fiddle on his back and amazing skills at being a sapper, they all feel so human. And even when you're at a loss for some of the mysteries and some of the greater plot points, you are still constantly endeared to the characters you're seeing before you. Whether it's the alcoholic Sergeant Hellion, the incredibly comedic Tahol Bedict that is incredibly wealthy but still dresses like a hobo, or the mad rampaging Karsa Orlong, all of these characters you will find something to endear yourself to. You will find something to empathize with. Cotillion, another amazing character. Dancer, every character journey within this series serves to highlight the themes that he's trying to convey of empathy and compassion. Itkovian, another one that is just amazing. You really get him in Memories of Ice. He's one of the main characters in that book, and there's a moment in Memories of Ice that made me weep. Actually, that's true for Deadhouse Gates as well. Both books 2 and 3 had scenes that made me weep. And Gardens of the Moon, a lot of people say, it's the weakest Malazan book. I do think it is probably my second least favorite of the whole series. Number 1 being Reaper's Gale, book 7, and then Gardens of the Moon. Both of those books are 4 out of 5 stars for me. And then there are no 4.5 Malazan books. Every single other book in the series is a 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5, 10 out of 5. They're the best books I've ever read in my life. With the exception of Reaper's Gale and Gardens of the Moon that are damn good books. Just not the masterpieces that the rest of the series is for my own personal enjoyment. And then I've gone on to read the Carcanis trilogy. Well, right now it's a duology, but those are both 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 masterpieces. I've read Path to Ascendancy, really great series. I've read Novels of the Malazan Empire. There's 2 in that series that I'm not incredibly fond of, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I thought it added a lot to the world. I want to take a brief moment to speak on Esselmont's writing. So Ian C. Esselmont kind of gets the raw end of the deal and constantly being compared to Erikson, but I do think his writing would stand on its own even if he wasn't working in the same world as Erikson. I think that you should not skip over those books. They enrich the world. They enrich some of the character arcs that we saw, especially Orb Scepter Throne is almost a sequel to Toll the Hounds, which is if not my favorite book I've ever read, it's one of my favorite books I ever read. And a lot of those plot points Erickson doesn't come back to until much later, like the Witness trilogy. But Esselmont wrote Orb Scepter Throne, which is book 4. Yeah, book 4, and the novel's The Malazan Empire. And it's almost like a sequel to Toll the Hounds. It carries on a lot of those plot points. Now, when I tell people that my favorite thing I've ever read in my entire life is this big, epic 10-book fantasy series, they usually think like, oh, you must not read a lot of literary fiction. I have read everything by James Joyce. I've read quite a bit of Shakespeare. I've read some Dickens. I've read some Austen. I've read The Count of Monte Cristo. Love that book. But I've read some of the greats, Mary Shelley, John Steinbeck. I've read a lot of literary fiction, and I do love me some classical literary fiction at times. But I think Erickson stands out as the greatest writer I've ever read in my entire life. You know, Robin Hobb and Janny Words are right on it, right up on him, like getting close. But to me, Erickson, his prose, his dialogue, his intention when writing is just bar none. And I just think that this fantasy series, this epic fantasy series with velociraptors with swords for fucking arms, should not be as poignant and as powerful and as meaningful as it is. It really transcends the genre of fantasy, and I think it is the greatest series of all time. I think it's the greatest work of fiction of all time. And it would kind of suck if it was my favorite work of fiction of all time and I only read it once. So me and some friends of mine, David from Four Corners of the Page and Preach from Preacher Reads, I believe, we're all going to be doing a Malazan read through. It's like David's 5th or 6th time through the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. It's only my 2nd time. But with a series like Malazan that foreshadows so much, and there's so many through lines throughout the series, so many connections to be made, I think that a reread will almost feel like a whole new series. And I'm actually going to order a little trade paperback version of Gardens of the Moon, because I'm not reading these broken binding editions. They're way too pretty. I'm not doing that. These are not annotatable, and I want to read Gardens and annotate it, highlight sections, take notes in the margins, and do that kind of thing, because I think Erickson's writing, the first time through, I was just enjoying the story and enjoying the scenes and enjoying the characters. This time I want to really dissect it and annotate it and think about it critically. So that's coming up for the channel. We'll probably be announcing at a later date when that's all happening. But yeah, I just think Malazan Book of the Fallen is my favorite series of all time. And let me know what you thought of it. If you're going to read it, if you have read it and it didn't, gel with you, let me know down in the comment section below. And peace.